Billionaire signed the wrong line. The Waitress pointed to life. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital Cafe buzzed like angry wasps at 3 in the morning. Rowan Black sat hunched over a small round table, his $1,000 suit wrinkled from 5 days of wear, his usually perfect hair hanging limp across his forehead. His hands trembled as he held a pen above a stack of medical papers, the words swimming before his exhausted eyes. Outside the cafe windows, the city slept, but inside this small corner of the hospital, time had stopped moving forward. It only circled like water going down a drain, pulling everything with it into darkness. Eva Ruiz watched him from behind the counter, wiping down the same spot for the 3rd time. She had been watching this man for a week now, ever since his wife had been brought in after the accident. Every night he came down from the ICU to this cafe, ordered black coffee, and stared at papers or his phone. Tonight was different, though. Tonight he had forms in front of him. Forms Eva recognized because she had seen them before, 2 years ago, when her own mother lay dying in this same hospital. The memory made her chest tight, but she kept cleaning, kept watching, because something about the way his shoulders shook told her this was a moment that would change everything. Rowan's phone vibrated on the table. He grabbed it quickly, pressing it to his ear. "Morrison, I told you I'd be there," he said, his voice rough from lack of sleep. "The Tokyo deal closes at noon their time. That's in 3 hours." He listened, his jaw clenching. "I know it's worth $2 billion. I know we've worked on it for 18 months. His eyes moved to the papers in front of him, then up to the ceiling as if looking for answers in the water-stained tiles. "I'll be there. Just give me 30 minutes. He ended the call and picked up the pen again, his hand moving toward the consent form that would end life support for his wife, Marina. The form was complicated, full of medical language and tiny checkboxes. Rowan's eyes burned from exhaustion and unshed tears. Marina had been in a coma for 7 days now, since a drunk driver had hit her car on the highway. The doctors said her brain activity was minimal. They said the chances of recovery were less than 5%. They said he needed to think about quality of life, about letting go, about making peace with the inevitable. But they didn't know Marina like he did. They didn't know how she fought for everything in her life, fought to build her charity foundation, fought to help kids in poor neighborhoods get education, fought to make their marriage work even when his obsession with business threatened to tear them apart. His pen touched the paper. The boxes were so small, so close together. One said, "I refuse further extraordinary measures and request comfort care only." The other, just a millimeter below it, said, "I consent to experimental treatments including trial enrollment." His tired eyes couldn't focus properly. The Tokyo deal was worth everything to his company. Morrison had been clear. If Rowan wasn't there to sign, their Japanese partners would walk away. $2 billion gone. Thousands of jobs on the line. His legacy, his empire, everything he had built over 20 years. The pen moved and he marked an X in a box, not really seeing which one, just needing to be done with this impossible choice. Eva had been moving closer without realizing it, drawn by something she couldn't name. She saw his pen make the mark, saw which box he had checked, and her heart stopped. He had signed the wrong line. He had refused the experimental treatment, chosen only comfort care. She knew what that meant. Marina Black would be gone by morning. Eva thought of her own mother, of the box that a tired doctor had missed on her forms, the box that would have enrolled her in a drug trial that might have saved her life. They discovered the mistake 3 days later, after it was too late. Eva had promised herself she would never let anyone else make that kind of mistake if she could help it. "Sir," Eva said, her voice steady but soft. Rowan looked up, startled, his red-rimmed eyes meeting hers. "You just signed the wrong line." Rowan blinked at her, confusion replacing the numbness on his face. "What?" Eva moved closer, her finger pointing to the form. "These boxes, they're too close together. You marked the one that refuses treatment. But there's another option here." She tapped the paper gently. "This one allows for a new trial. I heard the doctors talking about it yesterday. It's a heart assist device that syncs with brain rhythms. It's helped 3 coma patients wake up in the last month." Rowan stared at the paper, then at Eva. His eyes moved to her name badge. where beside her name was stamped a single word that the hospital had added to all their badges as part of a wellness campaign: life. The word seemed to glow under the harsh lights. "How do you know about this trial?" "I work the night shift. I hear things. I see things." Eva's voice was gentle but firm. "My mom died because a box was missed on her forms. A clinical trial that could have given her 6 more months, maybe more. We found out after she was gone. The doctor had been awake for 36 hours, just like you've been awake for days. Don't let a line choose for you, Mr. Black. Not when there's still hope." Rowan's hand started shaking harder. "The doctors said her brain activity is minimal." "They said, the doctors say a lot of things," Eva interrupted, something fierce entering her voice. "But I've worked here for 5 years. I've seen miracles happen. I've also seen people give up too soon. That trial, it's specifically for patients like your wife. Minimal brain activity but stable vitals. The device helps stimulate neural pathways while supporting cardiac function. 3 people have woken up. 3 out of 10. That's 30%, not 5. 30%, Rowan repeated, the number hanging in the air between them. His phone buzzed again. Morrison. The Tokyo deal. $2 billion. His empire. Everything he had worked for his entire adult life. He looked at the phone, then at Eva, then at the word life on her badge. "My business partner is calling." "There's a deal." "There's always a deal," Eva said quietly. "But there's only one Marina." The words hit Rowan like cold water. Marina. Her name was Marina. Not my comatose wife, or the patient, or the situation I need to handle. She was Marina, who loved yellow roses and hated Brussels sprouts. Marina, who danced in their kitchen while cooking breakfast. Marina, who had begged him just last month to take a vacation, to slow down, to remember what really mattered. He had promised her after the Tokyo deal. Always after the next deal. Rowan grabbed the pen and crossed out the mark he had made. His hand was steadier now as he found the right box, the one that said yes to the experimental treatment, yes to hope, yes to trying everything possible. He signed his name with careful precision, then stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "I need to go upstairs. I need to tell them about the trial." "The trial coordinator comes in at 6, Eva said. "But the ICU nurses can start the paperwork now." Rowan was already moving toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "Why did you help me? You don't even know me." Eva smiled, a sad but warm expression. "I know enough. I know you've been here every night. I know you always order black coffee but never finish it. I know you hold your wife's picture in your wallet. I've seen you look at it when you think no one's watching. And I know what it's like to lose someone because of a moment's mistake. Go. Go be with her." Rowan ran. He ran through the hospital corridors like he hadn't run since he was a child, his expensive shoes slipping on the polished floors. He burst into the ICU, startling the night nurse, and gasped out words about the trial, about the form, about needing to change everything right now. The nurse, a calm woman named Patricia who had seen everything in her 30 years of service, took the forms and read them carefully. "Mr. Black, this trial just opened yesterday. Your wife is actually an ideal candidate. We can start the enrollment process immediately." The next hours blurred together. Forms were filed, calls were made, and by dawn, a team of specialists had arrived to install the Heart Assist device. It was smaller than Rowan expected, a tiny machine that would learn Marina's rhythms and try to wake her sleeping brain. The doctor, a young woman named Dr. Chen, explained that it would take time, maybe days, maybe weeks, but they would watch for any change, any sign that Marina was finding her way back. Rowan's phone had 23 missed calls from Morrison. The Tokyo deal had fallen through. $2 billion gone. Morrison's messages grew increasingly angry, talking about lawsuits, about breach of contract, about the end of their partnership. Rowan deleted them all without reading them fully. He sat beside Marina's bed, holding her hand, watching the new machine's lights blink in rhythm with her heartbeat. "I'm sorry," he whispered to her still form. "I'm sorry I almost gave up. I'm sorry I've always put deals first. I'm sorry for every dinner I missed, every vacation I postponed, every time I said, Just one more meeting when you wanted me to come home." The machines beeped steadily. Marina's chest rose and fell, but she didn't respond. Still, Rowan kept talking, telling her about Eva, about the word life on her badge, about how he almost made the worst mistake of his existence. 3 days passed. Rowan didn't leave the hospital. He had his assistant bring him clean clothes, but he refused to go home. He ate in the cafe where Eva worked, and each night she would ask how Marina was doing. Each night he would say, "No change yet, but I'm hopeful." Eva would nod and bring him soup instead of coffee, making sure he ate something substantial. She never charged him for the soup. On the 4th day, something changed. It was subtle at first. The machine's rhythm shifted slightly, adapting to something new in Marina's brain patterns. Dr. Chen came running when the nurses called her, studying the monitors with growing excitement. "There's increased activity in her frontal lobe," she said. "The device is picking up stronger signals." "This is good, Mr. Black. This is very good." Rowan leaned over Marina, touching her face gently. "Marina, can you hear me?" "It's me. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, so slowly he almost missed it, Marina's fingers curled around his hand. Not a reflex, not a random movement, but a deliberate squeeze. Rowan sobbed, great heaving sobs that he had been holding inside for 2 weeks. "That's it, baby. Come back to me. Take your time, but come back." It took another week for Marina to fully wake up. Her eyes opened first, confused and unfocused, but they found Rowan immediately. She couldn't speak yet. The tubes and the trauma had made her throat too damaged, but she could squeeze his hand once for yes, twice for no. When he asked if she was in pain, she squeezed twice. When he asked if she knew who he was, she squeezed once and her eyes filled with tears. When he asked if she forgave him for almost giving up, she squeezed once, then pulled his hand to her heart. The recovery was slow and difficult. Marina had to relearn many things: how to swallow, how to speak, how to walk. The experimental device had saved her life, had brought her back from the edge of darkness. But the journey back to full health would take months, maybe years. Rowan was there for every physical therapy session, every speech therapy appointment, every small victory and setback. His business suffered. He lost several major clients, had to sell off parts of his company to cover the losses from the Tokyo deal, but he never once looked at his phone during Marina's therapy sessions. 1 month after Marina woke up, when she could finally walk with a walker and speak in short sentences, Rowan brought her down to the hospital cafe. It was 3 in the morning, their old visiting time, and Eva was there wiping down tables. When she saw them, her face lit up with a joy that made the fluorescent lights seem less harsh. "Marina, this is Eva," Rowan said. "She saved your life. She saved both our lives, really." Marina looked at Eva with eyes that understood more than her limited words could express. "Thank you," she managed, each word a victory. Eva came around the counter and took Marina's hands gently. "I'm just glad you're here. That's all that matters." Rowan reached into his pocket and pulled out a check. It was blank, signed, but with no amount filled in. "Eva, I want you to have this. Whatever you need, whatever you want. You gave me back my world." Eva looked at the check and smiled, but pushed it back toward him. "I don't want your money, Mr. Black. But if you want to help, there's a clinic downstairs that provides free care to people who can't afford treatment. They're always short on funding. And there's a program that helps families navigate the medical system when they're too overwhelmed to understand their options. They could use someone like you, someone who understands both business and what it's like to almost lose everything." Rowan folded the check and put it back in his pocket, but his eyes were bright with something new, purpose that went beyond deals and mergers. "Tell me more about this clinic." Eva pointed toward the elevator. "First floor, turn left. They open at 7. Dr. Williams runs it. Tell him Eva sent you. Tell him you want to help give people second chances." "Second chances," Marina repeated, her voice stronger now. "Good." Over the next months, as Marina continued her recovery, Rowan became a regular presence at the free clinic. He used his business expertise to help them streamline their operations, his connections to bring in funding, and his own story to counsel families facing impossible decisions. He set up a foundation called the Lifeline that provided advocates for families dealing with critical medical situations, making sure no one had to navigate the complex medical system alone while exhausted and terrified. Eva continued working her night shifts, but now she also trained volunteers for the foundation, teaching them what to watch for: the tired parent about to sign the wrong form, the confused spouse who didn't understand their options, the overwhelmed child trying to make decisions for an aging parent. She taught them to look for the moments when someone needed a steady voice to say, "Wait, let me help you understand what this means." 1 year later, on the anniversary of Marina's accident, Rowan and Marina returned to the hospital cafe at 3 in the morning. Ava was there, as always, but this time the cafe wasn't empty. It was full of people. Families who had been helped by the Lifeline Foundation, medical staff who supported the program, and survivors who had gotten their second chances. Marina, walking now without assistance though still moving slowly, stood up to speak. "A year ago, I was gone," she said, her voice clear and strong. "My brain was silent, my future was nothing. But 3 people saved me. My husband, who chose hope over convenience. Dr. Chen, who developed the treatment that brought me back. And Eva, who spoke up when she could have stayed silent." She turned to Eva. "You didn't just point to a different line on a form. You pointed to life itself. You reminded us that every life deserves every chance, that no one should slip away because of exhaustion or confusion or a box too small to see clearly." Eva wiped tears from her eyes. "I just did what I wished someone had done for my mother." "And that's exactly why it mattered," Marina said. "Because you turned your pain into purpose. You made sure your loss wasn't repeated." Rowan stood beside his wife, his arm around her waist, supporting her as she tired from standing. The man who had once measured his worth in billions now measured it in moments like this: Marina walking, talking, living. His company was smaller now, his wealth reduced, but his life was infinitely richer. He had learned what Eva had tried to teach him that night, that there was always another deal, another opportunity to make money, but there was only one chance to choose life when it hung in the balance. The foundation grew over the years. Eva eventually became its full-time director, leaving her cafe job to help more families navigate their darkest moments. She implemented a simple system. Anyone could call for a life check when they were about to make major medical decisions. A trained advocate would come, sit with them, and make sure they understood every option, every trial, every possibility. The advocates wore badges just like Eva's had, with life printed clearly beside their names, a reminder of what they were there to protect. Dr. Chen's experimental treatment became standard protocol, saving dozens more lives. She often said that Marina Black was her miracle patient, the one who proved the technology worked, but Marina always corrected her. "I wasn't the miracle," Marina would say. "The miracle was a waitress who cared enough to speak up, a husband who chose love over money, and a medical system that finally started seeing patients as people, not paperwork." 5 years after that night in the cafe, Rowan stood before a conference of healthcare executives. He was there to talk about the Lifeline Foundation, about patient advocacy, about the importance of human connection in medical care. But he started his speech differently than planned. "5 years ago, I was worth $2 billion less than I could have been," he said. "I lost the biggest deal of my career because I chose to stay with my comatose wife instead of flying to Tokyo. It was the best investment I ever made." He paused, looking at Marina in the front row, at Eva beside her. "But I almost didn't make it. I almost signed the wrong line, almost chose the easy ending over the difficult hope. A minimum wage waitress named Eva Ruiz saved me from making that mistake. She had no medical degree, no special training, just compassion and the courage to speak up. She pointed to a word on her badge, life, and reminded me that some things can't be measured in dollars or convenience." The executives shifted uncomfortably. These were people like Rowan had been, focused on efficiency, on cost-benefit analysis, on the bottom line. But Rowan continued, his voice growing stronger. We've created a healthcare system so complex that exhausted grieving families can't navigate it. We stack checkboxes so close together that tired eyes can't distinguish between hope and surrender. We rush people through the worst decisions of their lives because there's always another patient, another crisis, another form to process. But what if we stopped? What if we took the time to make sure people understood their choices? What if we had advocates like Eva in every hospital, watching for the moment when someone needs help seeing clearly? The room was silent. Then, from the back, one executive started clapping. Then another. Soon, the entire room was applauding, not just for Rowan's speech, but for Eva, who stood and nodded, uncomfortable with attention but proud of what they had built together. After the conference, a young doctor approached Eva. "Ms. Ruiz, I'm starting my residency next month. I'm terrified I'm going to miss something important, that I'll be too tired or too overwhelmed to catch a crucial detail. What advice do you have?" Eva thought for a moment, then said, "Remember that every form you hand someone, every decision you ask them to make, might be the most important moment of their life. It's not just paperwork. It's someone's mother, father, spouse, child. Take the extra second to make sure they understand. Point to life always. Even when it's harder, even when it takes longer, point to life." The young doctor nodded and walked away, but Eva could see she had taken the words to heart. This was how change happened. One person at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time. Marina took Eva's hand as they walked out of the conference center. Her gait was steady now, only a slight limp betraying her past trauma. "Eva, I never asked you, what was your mother's name?" "Rosa," Eva said softly. "Rosa Ruiz. She would have been 70 this year." "Tell me about her." As they walked through the city streets, Eva told Marina about Rosa, how she had worked 3 jobs to put Eva through school, how she had loved to sing while cooking, how she had always said that helping others was the rent we paid for our time on Earth. Marina listened, understanding now why Eva had been so determined to help that night in the cafe. Rosa Ruiz had raised a daughter who honored her memory by saving others from the same loss. "She would be proud of you," Marina said. "I hope so," Eva replied. "I think about her every day. Every family we help, I think about how we're giving them what I couldn't give her. More time, more chances, more life." They reached the hospital, where both women now worked, Marina as a patient advocate, Eva as the director of the Lifeline Foundation. The cafe where it all started was still there, still serving coffee at 3 in the morning to exhausted families. But now there was also an office next door, staffed 24 hours a day, where anyone could walk in and say, "I need help understanding my options." On the wall of that office hung a simple frame. Inside was the original badge Eva had worn that night with her name and the word "Life." Beneath it was a plaque that read, "In memory of Rosa Ruiz and all those who were lost too soon. In hope for all those who still have a chance. Choose life, even when the lines are blurred." Rowan often came to that office, even though his main work was now with the Foundation's business operations. He would stand before that framed badge and remember the night he almost lost everything that mattered. The Tokyo deal that had seemed so important was forgotten now, a footnote in business history. But Marina's recovery, the foundation they built, the lives they saved, that was a legacy worth leaving. The story of the billionaire who signed the wrong line became legend in the hospital. New nurses heard it during orientation. Young doctors were told it as a cautionary tale about the importance of clear communication. But for those who lived it, it was simpler than legend. It was about a waitress who cared enough to speak up, a husband who chose love over money, and a woman who fought her way back from the edge of darkness. Eva never did take Rowan's money directly, but she accepted something more valuable, his partnership in building something that mattered. Together with Marina, they created a system that made sure no one else would lose someone they loved because of a misunderstood form or a missed opportunity. They made sure that in every hospital they could reach, someone was pointing to life. Years later, when Eva was asked to write about her experience for a medical journal, she kept it simple. We all have moments when we can speak up or stay silent. When we see someone about to make a mistake that could cost them everything, we have a choice. We can mind our own business, or we can point to life. I learned from losing my mother that silence in those moments is complicity with tragedy. So I spoke up. I pointed to a different line on a form. It was such a small action, but it changed everything. That's what I want people to understand. You don't need to be a doctor or a nurse to save a life. Sometimes you just need to be someone who cares enough to say, "Wait, I think you're making a mistake. Let me help." The journal article was read by thousands of healthcare workers around the world. Hospitals in other cities started implementing their own advocacy programs. The Lifeline model was studied and replicated. What started as one moment in a hospital cafe at 3 in the morning became a movement that saved countless lives. But for Eva, the work was always personal. Every night before she left the office, she would touch the framed badge and whisper, "For you, Mom. All of this is for you." And somewhere, perhaps, Rosa Ruiz knew that her daughter had turned the greatest loss into the greatest gift, a second chance for others to choose life when the lines were too blurred to see clearly. Marina recovered fully, though she never returned to her old life of charity galas and society events. Instead, she spent her days in the trenches of healthcare advocacy, sitting with families in their darkest hours, helping them understand their options, making sure they knew that choosing hope was always valid, even when the odds seemed impossible. She would often say, "I'm living proof that 30% is better than 0%. I'm here because someone pointed to life." Rowan rebuilt his business empire, but differently this time. Every deal included a component of social responsibility. Every merger came with a commitment to employee healthcare advocacy. He became known not as the billionaire who walked away from Tokyo, but as the CEO who understood that people mattered more than profits. His new ventures focused on healthcare technology, on making medical information clearer, on developing systems that prevented the kind of near tragedy his family had experienced. And Eva kept pointing to life. Every day, in ways small and large, she helped people see through their exhaustion and fear to find hope. She trained hundreds of advocates, each wearing a badge with life printed clearly beside their name. She spoke at conferences, wrote guidelines, and consulted with hospitals around the world. But she never forgot that it all started with a simple observation, that a tired man was about to sign the wrong line, and a decision to speak up. The hospital cafe still serves coffee at 3 in the morning. Families still sit at those small round tables, wrestling with impossible decisions. But now they're not alone. Now there's always someone watching, someone ready to point to life when the lines blur and hope seems lost. The fluorescent lights still buzz like angry wasps, but they illuminate more than despair now. They illuminate possibility, second chances, and the profound truth that sometimes the smallest actions, pointing to a different line saying, "Wait, let me help," choosing to care, can change everything. This is the story of how a billionaire signed the wrong line and a waitress pointed to life. But more than that, it's the story of how tragedy became purpose, how loss became determination to prevent more loss, and how 3 people, Rowan, Marina, and Eva, proved that wealth isn't measured in dollars but in the lives we touch, the hope we preserve, and the moments when we choose to point toward life instead of accepting defeat. The Foundation's motto, printed on every document and carved above every office door, came from Eva's simple wisdom that night. When the lines are blurred and the choice seems impossible, point to life. Always point to life,